What's up, everyone? It's Cannan back with another video, and yes, I know I'm like a week or so late on this, but I wanted some time to go by so I could actually gather my thoughts on this, as this is something that I've been around for since day one. It's something that I never thought I would see happen, and it's funny. I've seen this kind of thing happen twice now in my lifetime, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Like, I love gaming. Okay, I have loved video games probably later in life than most people. Like, I played video games when I was a kid, but I didn't really get into them until I was about, late childhood, early teens, and that's when I got a PlayStation 1. Before then, I had had a Nintendo, original Nintendo, and NES. Never got to experience the SNES as a kid. I had a Sega Genesis. I had a Nintendo 64, and I played them, but I never had a whole lot of games for them. I never seriously got into it until the PlayStation 1. And that was back in the day when you could burn games and the system would play them. It wasn't me doing them because, hey, I was only like, I don't know, 10, 11 at that time, maybe 12, I don't know. But the first two games I ever played on the PlayStation 1 that really got me into gaming was Mega Man Legends, the first one, and an RPG called Legend of Legaia. And from then on, I was playing games all the time. I eventually, and like there was a lot of games that I had tested because the PlayStation 1 came with a little demo disc that had like Gran Turismo on it, and Medieval, and all these upcoming games that were, new at the time. The start of certain franchises and things like that. Soul Reaver was on it, I remember. Amazing time. But like there was still a time where I still did not have a whole lot of games because my parents couldn't afford them at that time. Because even back in the day, $50 for a PlayStation 1 game or, something like that was expensive in those days. And yes, I still remember when Walmart carried PlayStation 1 games in their store. So yes, I enjoyed the PlayStation 1 very, very much. And then the PlayStation 2 came out, and we all know, I do not have to go into detail how much of a success the PlayStation 2 was. That system has a gaming library that is so large that I don't think anyone has ever played every single PlayStation 2 game. It has that much of a library. But that is the generation where Sony and Nintendo were joined by, once again, a third competitor. Before then, it had been Sega. Now, many can argue the rivalry between PlayStation and Xbox is in a league of its own. I personally think the rivalry between Nintendo and Sega, back when Sega was actually making consoles, was even more so. Like, these two legitimately wanted to put the other out. They were doing things behind the scenes to try and sabotage the other. And I'm not saying Microsoft and Sony didn't try that either, but I don't think to the extent that Sega and Nintendo did. Eventually, after the Dreamcast, Sega didn't exactly fold, but they stopped making consoles, and now Nintendo owns at least most of their properties. Like Sonic is now a Nintendo-owned property. Which, even for me is wild because, all those generations of, well, not generations, but, all those years of Sonic being a Sega mascot, and now he's going to the Olympics with Mario. But I will never forget Sonic Adventure being announced for the GameCube. That was a time that I didn't really think we'd ever see again. Now, out comes Microsoft with the original Xbox in 2001. And, they did a heavy marketing for it. They, at the reveal of it, not only did they have Bill Gates, the head of Microsoft, but they had The Rock. And this was during the end of the Attitude Era. So The Rock was a huge star to have them have come on and show his endorsement of the Xbox. And I was curious, so I got an original Xbox for Christmas that year. I already had a PlayStation 2, had a GameCube, so I had the Xbox. So I had all three in this generation. And the reason why I got an Xbox is because not only did I want to give it a try, I wanted to play Fable, the very first Fable. That was my game of choice for that system, and I really did enjoy the original Fable. I love that game, which is why I'm probably one of the few that's looking forward to the new one that's going to be coming out. And then, you know, after all the hype and all that, I did try the original Halo Combat Evolved. And you all know me, I'm not an online person. We didn't have high-speed internet at the time for me to play with other people. I was also a very shy kid, so I didn't have a whole lot of friends. So I wasn't playing with people all the time. I played the campaign of Combat Evolved. I actually did enjoy it. I really liked it. The reveal of the Flood, I think, is still one of the best plot twists in a game. And it was also very creepy. Like this action shooter became a horror game for a split second. Like, it creeped me out big time. But I never really bought a ton of games for the Xbox. I was still mostly a PlayStation guy. And this was really before exclusives were made a big deal. Like, you always knew that you were only going to be able to play Nintendo games on a Nintendo system, like Mario and things like that. But, you know, Halo was the first one that, you know, well, Fable as well, where they were only played on Xbox. I think the only other game that I played on the Xbox religiously was Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And then you had the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 era. Now, of course, as a PlayStation guy, I wanted a PS3. Well, they were $600 if I wanted the one that could be backwards compatible, so I had to wait until they came out with the more cheaper version. And I loved it, but something bad happened. The laser reader that reads the disc in it burned out and pretty much made the system unplayable. So I was still like, ugh. I think I was a senior in high school when the PS3 came out. So I had no money. I had no job. So my uncle offered to fix it, but I'd have to pay him for the parts. So I had to wait on that. So my parents got me a 360. The 360 was much more affordable, and most of the games I played on PlayStation were on the Xbox. I think at that time the only exclusive game I had played on the PlayStation 3 was the first Uncharted. But I'm thankful that I jumped to the 360 because I ended up discovering one of the games that would go on to be one of my all-time favorite series in gaming, and that was the first Mass Effect. There's a lot of people who do not remember that Mass Effect 1 was originally an Xbox 360 exclusive. And there are several other games I played on the 360 first before ever on the PlayStation, like, oh gosh, what was it? Of course, there was Fable 2. I had to pick up Fable 2 when it came out. I picked up Halo 2, but I never finished. I never finished the campaign in Halo 2. If the rumor that Halo 2 and 3 are getting remade, that'll be my first time playing them both all the way through. But yeah, it's hard to remember. Like, I had so many games for the 360 because my PS3 was broken. But eventually, my uncle did fix my PS3, and so I went back to mostly playing on it. But I still kept my 360 because there was games on it that I loved that were only on the 360. Like, at that time, Mass Effect. I played Dragon Age Origins for the first time, only on the 360. Tales of Vesperia, one of my all-time favorite Japanese RPGs, and still to this day, my favorite Tales game, was an Xbox 360 exclusive, which is wild if you think about that, because Xbox has never been popular in Japan, and it's not exactly known for having Japanese RPGs. So, you know, eventually, finally, later in the PS4 era, we got the Tales of Vesperia on the PlayStation, and it was the PS3 version that released only in Japan. But then came what many consider what really killed the Xbox, and that was that 2013 presentation of the Xbox One. Now, you have got to remember, at this time, I'm still camped in both. I have a PS3, I have an Xbox 360, and heck, I even have a Nintendo Wii. The Nintendo Wii got played less than the Xbox. Let's just say this. I was not a big fan of the Nintendo Wii. The only game that came out on the Nintendo Wii that I was actually really excited about was Twilight Princess, and I played the GameCube version. Let's put it that way. But I was a substitute teacher by the time the Xbox One's reveal came, and I watched the presentation with my students that day. They begged and begged if we could watch it, and since the teacher who was off the day had not left them anything, pretty much had said they could have the rest of the period off. So yeah, we watched it, and I remember sitting there. I remember the kids were like, "Oh man, this is awesome! Can you believe it?" I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this is a video game console. Why are they only talking about television and movies and, you know, voice activation? Hey, X-Backs, put on Law and Order, or, you know, let me watch the NFL. You know, I was just like, now, I get it. There are some gamers who watch sports. You know, we're not all nerds that hate sports. I used to watch football all the time. I used to watch NASCAR all the time. I watch the Olympics every single time they come on. But I'm not buying a console to watch them on. You know, now, of course, in this day and age, you know, this was a time before streaming, like movies and shows and all that, wasn't mainstream yet. It was not the thing. People were still watching cable television or buying or renting their movies from the store. You know, really, if you think about it, if they had waited until like the Xbox Series X to really focus on this, it could have been a major W for Microsoft. It might have actually worked. They were really ahead of the game at that point, a little bit ahead of their time. But you have to remember, the moment they started talking about, oh, it won't play used games, it's always going to have to be connected to the internet, you have to sign in every 24 hours, there was a lot of people, including myself, who still did not have access to high-speed internet. Yes, in 2013, there was still plenty of areas in America that did not have access to high-speed internet. And then that year's E3, when the PS4 was announced, you know, $100 cheaper than the Xbox One, which, yes, was forcing you to also buy a Kinect, which upped the price, but didn't have to be online. If you wanted to play single players offline, you could. If you wanted to sell your games or let someone borrow them, it would play used games. All that. This is what made me leave Xbox. Now, of course, yes, they went back and changed it all, but it's the fact that they were going to do it in the first place. I think this is really where the Microsoft execs started muddling with Xbox. Now, of course, that's when, you know, after that, that's when they brought in Phil Spencer and all that. He was pretty much brought in to try and do damage control and bring Xbox back, but I still to this day do not think it ever reached what it had with the 360, because the PS4 ended up leaving the Xbox One in the dust. And then we get to the current generation, the PS5 and the Xbox Series S and X. Once again, things were muddy because of COVID, because by the time they released, I think it might have been after COVID, maybe. I can't remember, but parts, like Sony and Microsoft were saying that, you know, getting parts was hard, so they could only put out so many. There was months where you couldn't find either system in stores. But luckily, I worked at GameStop at the time, so I was able to pre-order and fully pay off, mind you, my system. By the time it came out, I did an unboxing video. It came out pretty much right in time for my birthday. So yeah, if you ever want to go back and watch me unbox my PS5 when it first came out, go ahead. But then, you know, thanks to my current job, I was able to afford Jess one, so I bought Jess a PlayStation 5 for our wedding anniversary. one year, and even though there was one Xbox series she loves, and that's Forza, and I remember she didn't know. She was like, "Is Forza on PlayStation?" I was like, "No, it's Xbox only, hon. You're going to have to deal with Gran Turismo." But about a year ago, because I did a video on it, because I was trying to do weekly gaming videos, and I ended up falling off on that. It started talking that Microsoft and Xbox were considering putting some of their exclusives on other platforms, and this caused major news. And it turned out to be 4 games. I can't remember the names of all of them, but 2 of them were Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush. And people were upset even with those 4 games, because it was mostly 2 kind of AAA games and then 2 indie-like games. And I'll never forget the announcement that they did where Phil Spencer was like, "It's just these 4 games. Could stuff come in the future? Yeah, but we're not gonna, who knows." Now, keep in mind, at that time, it was already rumored that Starfield was coming to PlayStation. It was supposed to originally come out around the time they released the expansion, but the expansion's out and there's still no PS5 version. But apparently, as of right now, recording this video, it's slated to come out for PlayStation in 2026. We will see. But after that, the Indiana Jones game made by Bethesda gets announced for the PS5 before it even releases out on Xbox. Hellblade 2, a game that many Xbox fans were like, "Well, you can have that. We've got Hellblade." Hellblade 2 comes out for PlayStation 5. And I'm just like, what is going on? And I had already started talking about Xbox is going to become the next Sega. They're going to do away with hardware, and they're going to go to just being a game developer. Because Microsoft at its core is a software company. They're not a hardware company. And I really do think the heads of Microsoft, like all the way up there, like I don't really know how much Bill Gates is actually involved with Microsoft anymore in this day and age, but like Bill Gates level execs, I've always heard they did not care about the Xbox. The Xbox was pocket change to them. They only cared about what next version of Windows was going to be developed. And here recently, it looks like that is exactly what is going on. They are expecting Xbox to produce 30% more profit than they have been. And with the way the sales have been going, because console sales have been coming out, and I mean, every time they tried to release a game, Redfall, we all remember Redfall, Crackdown 3, all that. They have just constantly hyped games up and not delivered. I know this is kind of weird coming from a Sony guy, because Sony games take a good while to come out, but like they would announce these games and then they could not release their exclusives in a timely manner. There is also the fact that I really do not believe there is such thing as an Xbox exclusive. Because the moment a game that comes out that's supposed to be Xbox exclusive, it's on the PC as well. There was a time where really, if you wanted to play every game coming out, you had to have a Nintendo system, you had to have a PlayStation, and you had to have a PC. Because you could play games that were only for the PC and for the Xbox. And at that point, I was like, what's the point in buying an Xbox? Yeah, it's cheaper than a PC, but if you have a PC, you have no use for the Xbox. So that's another reason why I kind of stepped away from Xbox. And yes, I know Sony takes forever to come out with their exclusives, but every time they do come out with an exclusive, it's gotten major accolades. And yes, I am mostly a Sony guy. I've been one since PlayStation 1. Do I agree with everything Sony does? Absolutely not. I think they have made some very bad decisions, some bogus decisions, and I still think to this day, them not at least releasing a remastered version of Bloodborne, my all-time favorite From Software game, is mind-boggling to me. There are so many people who want an upscaled version of that game, or at least a PC port of what is considered by many to be From Software's best game. Yes, it was a Sony exclusive, but I loved it because it was HP Lovecraftian horror Souls game that done HP Lovecraft lore correctly. And so that's why I'll always say, if they come out with a new version of Bloodborne, whether it's on PS5, PlayStation 6, PC, I will buy it and I will play it because I love that game so much. Not necessarily because it's on a PlayStation or it's a Sony only game, but because it to me, I enjoyed it more than Elden Ring, and I beat Elden Ring. And enjoyed it a whole lot, but Bloodborne, I think, will never be topped for me. And so now we have recently, Forza Horizon 5 comes to PlayStation 5. And I'm still shocked to this day Jess hasn't bought it yet. But of the three pillars, Halo, Gears, and Forza, there was one. I could not believe it. I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I never thought I would see Forza on the PlayStation. And then next thing you know, Gears of War Reloaded, a remake of the first Gears of War on PlayStation. And I was already saying it, Halo's next. There is no way that Halo is not going to be on the PlayStation eventually. And then, the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion remaster. Everybody thought it was going to be PC and Xbox only. It's on PlayStation day one. And that tells me right then and there, because now there's rumors, like I said, of Starfield coming in 2026. I think Elder Scrolls 6, whenever it releases, will be on a PlayStation system. The Outer Worlds 2, Obsidian, now a Microsoft-owned studio on PlayStation. The next Fable was supposed to come out allegedly this year. It got delayed till next year. And many say it's because they're working on a PlayStation port. And then, just a week ago, a remake of the campaign of the first Halo gets announced for Xbox Series S and X, Steam/PC, and PlayStation 5. Master Chief is now on a PlayStation. All three pillars, Halo, Gears, and Forza, are all on PlayStation now. And the Halo community director is sitting there at this event wearing a PlayStation shirt and says Halo is going to be on PlayStation going forward. Y'all, Phil Spencer himself said the console wars were over. That they lost the one generation that they could not lose. And that was the Xbox One. He said that was the worst generation to lose. Because they had all this momentum. Because the PlayStation 2 is still to this day the most selling console. It destroyed the original Xbox. Xbox 360 was beating the PS3 for most of that generation. But all worldwide sales show that the PS3 outsold the 360. I personally did not know that until a couple of years ago. I thought the 360 won that generation. But no, Sony still pulled it out and beat them that year. And then you have all this hype going into the Xbox One, and they blew it. They blew it on monumental levels. And here we are in this current generation, and Xbox has still never outsold Sony. Microsoft, a company who is worth more than Sony. They could buy Sony if they really tried. And then, of course, you have Nintendo, who sells systems, sells games, because Nintendo has this long pedigree of building a community, and they don't care. They do not care. They do their own thing. And yes, there's a lot of stuff Nintendo does that disgusts me. There are days that I do not like. There are days I love Nintendo, then there are days I hate Nintendo, But I'm going to have to get a Switch 2 eventually, because I'm pretty sure the next Room Factory will be on Switch 2 only. But I never thought I'd see this day. Here's the thing. I kind of did not see this coming, because Microsoft, as much as they are worth, they could continue putting out Xboxes for as long as they want to, even though they sell them at a loss. I don't know. And Sony, you know, they built enough of a fan base from the PS1 to now that I don't think they would ever quit. And I have a feeling the next Xbox, if it still happens, might just be the last one. Because apparently there's rumors it's going to be a PC hybrid, and people are already joking it's going to be like $1,200. And at that point, I think only the faithful will really buy that. But who knows? Who knows how much the PlayStation 6 is going to be, because they're already talking about that. And I'm like, God, feels like I got my PlayStation 5 just one day ago. You know, it's like, where's the time going? But I guess the gray in my beard is showing that time is definitely moving forward. But yeah, like, I just, as someone who, for a couple of generations, played in both camps, I left Xbox after the whole debacle of the Xbox One announcement, and I've never really looked back, because they also don't put out games that interest me. Okay, I'm more of a JRPG player, and just the kind of games that Sony puts out are the games I like, and you know, a lot of them are also available on the Xbox. So really, there's no need. If Fable, the new Fable, because guys, I don't care what people say about, you know, how the characters look or anything like that. If the new Fable plays like the older games, I'm gonna love it. I'm waiting on that game, and I'm gonna, if it is on the PlayStation, then yeah, there will never be a reason for me to buy an Xbox, because I've got a PC that I can play them on, and yeah, like, and I just really think at this point, the Xbox brand may not be fully dead, but they're about, like, it just feels like the dirt is about to be put on the plot, you know, at this point. But who knows? Who knows how things could change? But with all their major series now, their first party exclusives all on PlayStation now, you might as well call the PlayStation 5 an Xbox, you know. And I understand people are upset, but I'm just one of those people who never got so behind a series that if it ended up on the Xbox that I would be upset. Like, I didn't get upset when Final Fantasy went to the Xbox. You know, I wouldn't be upset if Horizon went to the Xbox, or Ghosts of Tsushima, or Ghosts of Yote, or I'm not worried about that, just because I just prefer the PlayStation ecosystem. You know, I just don't believe in getting that upset over something that really, at the end of the day, is not in my control. There's nothing I can do about it. But yeah, because I mean, I look at it this way: if it gets put on another system, that's more people to play it, and more people to enjoy it, and more money goes to the developers who made the game, who worked their asses off to make those games, who probably put in crunch time, who probably pulled a lot of all-nighters. That's who I want to make money. At the end, like, you know, publishers and all that, like, yeah, they do some scummy things, but I want the studios and the people who work on these games to get their money that they work for. Because at the end of the day, that's who you should really be supporting. Not a box that you play the games on. Because at the end of the day, Sony and Microsoft, they don't care about us. They just care about getting money out of us. But at the end of the day, I will continue to buy games and buy systems to make sure the people who actually worked hard on them, who put in the time, who put in the blood, sweat, and tears, a little dramatic, but you know what I mean, gets their money and gets paid for what they do, because they're the hardest working ones out of all these people. But that's my little tangent on this. Like, I think it's a wild time. I kind of saw it coming, but hearing the Halo theme music and then hearing PlayStation, it's just something I never thought I'd see. But it is what it is. We'll see how things go as the months continue, especially into next year when there's rumors of Starfield and Fable and all that coming to PlayStation. And they're talking about Halo 2 and Halo 3's campaigns getting remade as well. So we'll see where that goes. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, click that like button, leave a comment, all that good stuff. As always, guys, this is Cannan. Me and Jess love you all very, very much. Please stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one. See ya.